So, I'm not sure if there's anyone new. If you're new to these, just say so in the chat. We can get a rough idea of how many people are. But the way it works is we just basically discuss anything you want. This is like the Tuesday Talks for anyone who has been around for any of those. We get to talk about anything you want. Only this is to do with Retribution Paladins. Tuesday Talks is not at all to do with Retribution Paladins. Am I going to do Heroic today? I did Heroic early on today. That was on the earlier stream. Oh, hello. You're trying to tell me in none too subtle language that I've got the wrong title, aren't you? I know what you're on about. I knew something would go wrong. There we go. Hi, Grixor then. Welcome. Yeah, I do these roughly once a patch. The last time I did one of these was sort of last September. They've tended to roll around. Sometimes it's every month, sometimes it's once every couple of months. It all depends on whether there's anything worth going through in detail, and that's why recently I started doing the weekly Ret vlogs, of course, just so that there's some content. Because what I realise, sometimes I can go for quite a long time without doing any Retribution Paladin stuff at all. And obviously other Ret stuff is a small part of my channel, but it's an important part, I think. Except some people are not happy about that. I had a comment a few weeks when I started doing the Ret vlogs. I did one and it said like, "Oh my god, you always doing Ret videos." It's like, this is the first one I've done in ages. And I had another comment when I put on the shout for this discussion here, and someone was saying, "Oh great, another." It was like FML, another Ret Paladin video, and it's like, I do one a week. Right, I have done some stuff on the PTR. I haven't done anything on the PTR since this week. There was a patch, although I don't think there was anything momentous on it. There was an update to the PTR, but I don't think there was anything serious there, because I haven't seen anything on MMA Champion or Wowhead or anything like that, and no one's been discussing anything in the Ret Discord, because normally I would only get chance at the weekend, but of course this weekend I've had to reset Windows. Now, in terms of how Ret is doing, apparently we are likely to do very well in Antorus as things currently stand. But as things currently stand is not likely to be how things are going to currently stand when we get there. Have I seen the sim? Yeah, we want to ignore, remember, we ignore those comparison sims. I'll go through the reasons again. The first of all, where you see those sims, and I have seen them, I haven't got them to show here actually. For a start, all of those sims, well, apart from the fact that they're just patchwork for a given period of time, let's gloss over that for now. They use a standard set of gear which is considered to be, you know, a good set of mythic Antorus gear. Now, mythic Antorus gear is not what any of us, not even Method's best, are going to have anytime soon. So they're pointless from that point of view. The other thing as well is ask yourself this. Let's say you had a choice of whatever gear, at whatever level you do, normal, heroic, mythic, whatever. Are you only going to be using gear that you can get from Antorus? The answer is no. You know, for a start, you're likely to want to be using a 4 set of one tier and a 2 set of another. Well, that's not in the Sims. So the balance would change again. I was thinking, actually, if I have time, unfortunately, I've had to spend 24 hours this weekend not doing anything productive at all because of the Windows reset. But if I have time, what I was thinking of doing was doing those sims that someone else has already done, except using more realistic sims. For example, using 2-piece of a set. The problem is for us at the moment, we're likely, as things stand, to want 4-piece tier 20 and only 2-piece tier 21. But I think, I mean, well, for a start, we know they're going to change something for when Antorus goes live. I don't know what they're going to change yet, though. We know they're going to change something. Because apart from anything else, you just have to look at what they've said and what they've done in the past. They've said they don't like us using what might be called the 6-set bonus. Hi, Finway. That is to say, a 2-piece bonus from one tier and a 4-piece from another. Now, they won't want us to use, even though, of course, we're going to, 4-piece tier 21 and 2-piece tier 20. they're really not going to want us to use 4-piece tier 20 and 221. So what they did when this was going to be a thing with Tomb of Sargeras is they made sure that they swapped, you know, where the 2 set's better than the 4 set, they just swap them around. So at the very least, they're going to do that, surely. But, you know, there is still a thing where, and these sims don't take account of this, there's gear you can get outside of Antorus, gear that we've got right now from Tomb of Sargeras, but as well as gear from Mythic Plus Dungeons, that mean that that whole overall balance, that comparison of sim specs is worthless. So it's completely worthless. There's no point in looking at those. The useful thing about sims is for you to see for yourself individually, you know, maybe what gear could be better for a particular fight or what talents and stuff like that. Do I think the Arcanocris at 910 would be best for Ret? It would be very, very good for Ret, certainly. If you've got a 910 plus Arcano Crystal, then you're in good stead for Antorus, because the trinkets in Antorus, apart from obviously the legendary Arcano Crystal, are not very good. You know, they're not good. The Tomb of Sargeras ones may not be that great for us either, especially as they're going to keep falling behind in item level. So good old-fashioned stat sticks. And the thing is, the haste mastery, you know, dream may come back, because traditionally in the last few expansions, haste and mastery, ever since mastery came into the game, has generally been what you want. Obviously, there's always situations where you've got a lot of one thing and maybe you sort of put another one in instead. But generally speaking, haste and mastery you're on fairly safe ground with. But mastery, of course, has been behind all through Legion. But that's another thing. You know, the way we're looking at the moment, mastery is going to be looking very good for Antorus and Antorus gear. Tier 21, 2-piece especially. But there was a time when, you know, we were looking quite good for having mastery again, and they changed the set bonus, so maybe they'll change it again, I don't know. They're leaving it very late, though. So being able to combine the current 4-piece tier 20 with 4-piece tier 20. I don't think we can combine 4-piece with 4-piece. I don't think that's allowed. There's only 6 pieces altogether. But at the moment, 4-piece tier 20, like at the moment, if someone was to ask me in the guild what pieces I want, then oh, sorry, I see what you mean. Oh, right, okay. No. You know, Judgement, like you add 60% damage to Judgement, and Judgement is basically pretty much your hardest hitting spell. And with a decent amount of haste, it means you can be hitting it quite a lot as well. Even in Arathia. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they're not going to do that. All they can do is there's a few things they can do. They can swap around the 2 set and the 4 set. That's an easy thing to do. That would mean we'd want the 4 set bonus. They could change either the 2 set or the 4 set to be something else. The problem with that is that Antorus is coming out in a few weeks. That doesn't really give it any testing time. You know, we're at the point now, and obviously they haven't updated anything yet. They don't really tend to update the PTR. I think they only update it on Tuesdays, in fact, like midweek. I don't think they ever do. I don't think they ever put anything on updates at the weekend, as far as I can remember. Hiya, Heracleos. Awkward names. Yeah, I don't think they can do anything. So it's a minimum of next Tuesday before they can put another one on. And when are we then? That'll be the 14th, won't it? 2 weeks away. That's not enough. And what if there is a load of testing goes on and then they have to change it again? There just isn't time. They haven't time. They've sat on this set bonus. The thing is that annoys me is they've known for ages what the implications of the current 2 set and 4 set have been. They've known that. They've known that they could easily just swap them around, because at the very least, they're going to have to swap them around. And I don't know why they haven't just done that. That can't be a lot of work, surely. Hi, Black Pony. But anyway, yeah, if people have got things they want to sort of throw in there, just throw in general discussions. This is not just me rambling about random things. I can do that in videos. You might need to change your name. No one gets it right. No, we just need to think about it a bit. Heracleos. You get there in the end. But it's like when I scan it really quickly, it's like if it's more than 2 syllables, I'm on shaky ground. It's quite tricky. Some people have like 4 or 5 syllables in their name. It's like, oh. And especially if I need to say their name while I'm doing something, obviously something like this, I'm not actually playing the game, so it's great. I can spend a bit more time. Are the legendaries going up to 1,000 on raid release day, including the crafted ones? Well, you've got to boost them up to that. You've got to do a quest and gather materials again. New ones that you get will be 1,000, yes. But the ones you've currently got, just like you always have to do, you're going to have to do quests and get the item to upgrade them. I don't know what the item's called this time. It's been, what, Distilled Titanesses before. I don't know what the current one is. It's been so long since I've had to make one. So they don't automatically get bunged up. You have to do that yourself. And with the number of legendaries that most of us will have now, it's going to take a long old time. Long time. But yeah, again, with the crafted one, I mean, you could craft another one if you wanted. If you craft one, I suppose, after it goes live, then it will be 1,000. But for the one you've already got, yeah, you just have to. You'll have to boost it up. And there's another new legendary coming, of course, because as soon as you kill, there's a quest to kill like Argus that gets you. Well, I suppose there's 2 legendaries because there's obviously the Eye of Ammon Thul now as well, but that's more like an old-fashioned legendary, which has the small chance to drop off the final boss of the raid. I don't know yet whether people will like that or not, because I have noted with the legendary system, obviously no one really likes the Legion one. There have been some people say that they liked the legendary system that existed in the first couple of expansions, which is what this Eye of Ammon Thul basically will be as far as I understand it. So, you know, it might not get a massive amount of shouting down. Getting an engine for Antorus. I don't like the engine though, but yes, it would be nice because you get a massive amount of mastery on it. And what you're going to want is a massive amount of mastery. Like in the gear I've got at the moment, I think the last time I checked, I could get about 44% mastery. You want way more than that. You want to be getting up to about 60-odd% mastery if you can. Obviously, I could change gems and things like that. At the same time, I don't want to lose too much haste to get it, so you have to keep simming, just work out what's right. What do you mean? You've downed Mythic Gold every week and finally just got a 950 cinders off LFR? As if you should have got a 950. I haven't got a 950. I've got a 935. But again, you know, cinders, you're probably not gonna find that you're going to be using that for that much longer. What legendaries am I going to bump up to 1,000 first? That is a very good question. I don't know. I don't know. Because there's 4 that I would want to get up fairly quickly. Chain of Thrain, Whisper of the Nathrazim, Soul of the High Lord, Leandra's Fury Release. Now, out of those 4, I can probably discount Whisper of the Nathrazim because, again, the old 2 set plus 4 set means not wearing that. I'd probably go for Chain of Thrain first and then Soul of the High Lord rather than Leadrian's Fury. Just to cover for fights where maybe the most important damage isn't always during Crusade. But I don't know. I will do the belt first, I think. I would do the belt first. I don't have an engine. I mean, I'd have no use for an engine right now. I'm just going to hope for a decent Arcana Crystal. I think that's what I'm going to hope for. But yeah, in terms of legend, I'll do first. It'll be the belt, and then it'll be like the 2 rings, but I don't know in which order. Also depends how quickly we can get them. You know, if it ends up being that you can basically get an upgrade item once per week, then maybe you can get 2. Maybe you can do 2 a week. Hopefully without doing PvP. I don't really fancy if I've got to do PvP to get more of the stuff. So if you do all of the daily heroics and weekly, yeah, it's the weekly PvP bonuses I'd rather not do. I'd rather not do that. I would rather have 2 and hope that that's enough. The Soul of the High Lord, yeah, it has reduced stats, but the effect on it is fairly strong. I mean, the question would be as well is, would you just, because after the first week, if you kill Argus on either normal or heroic, you can also have, and this will depend on what you've got for your Netherlight Crucible, you also have access to the legendary ring from that quest reward. Now, for some people who have very good effects on their relics from the Netherlight Crucible, that ring could well be BIS. You might actually, and that'll be 1,000 straight off the bat, because you're only going to get that when it goes live. So you may not find that you're in as much of a hurry to get other stuff as you may think. You may just need to do the belt, and obviously you would still upgrade other things, but you may not need to. You may be fine. Yes, anything with mastery. I know I'm not upgrading the effect, but you are. But if you're going to wear it anyway, it might as well be the thing that's upgraded. Right, there's no point in upgrading something that you know is going to be in your bags on every fight. But yeah, the actual quest reward ring can be best depending on whether you've been lucky or not with your relics on the Netherlight Crucible. General rotation question. Should you use blade and overcap or not overcap? No, use blade and overcap. If there's a danger, I mean, I'm not saying you always just use that. Certainly, like, but yeah, you don't want to be delaying using Blade of Wrath too long, especially when you're using Blade of Wrath. Sorry, Blade of Justice when you're using Blade of Wrath. Yeah, overcap on it. It sounds silly, but it works. As a Healy, quite tempted to level Paladin out and play with the Holy Paladin. Well, we had someone today, you can have the best of both worlds to a certain point, in our heroic TOS pug run this afternoon, who was on a few bosses playing Shockadin and doing over 1 million DPS. So, you know, because that's fun. They should do a proper Shockadin spec. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Blade of Justice currently, of course, will do basically as much as a spender. And, I mean, you've got to take account of the fact it's physical damage, whereas your Templar's Verdict's holy. So you've got to take the armor into account. But it does a fearsome amount of damage. And also, you've got your spender straight after it anyway. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about... I mean, you'd still ideally spend and then use it first. But if that's not feasible, then yeah. I mean, sometimes you've got to bear in mind as well, it depends on the reason why you don't want to spend immediately. Because if you are going to overcap with it, that means by definition you can spend. And if it's that you're running in or moving between targets or something, sometimes what I do is just fire off a Divine Storm, because it doesn't do that much less damage than a Templar's Verdict, really. And if you know you're just wasting the availability of builders, just fire off a Divine Storm, even at a single target as you run towards it. I mean, I do that quite a bit on Mythic Kil'jaeden when we're moving between the reflections. If I'm moving towards it, if I know I've got stuff that I can instantly build back up to 5 Holy Power, just waiting, sitting there doing nothing, I'll fire off the Divine Storm and then use the thing as I'm running in. But there is... I am curious to know... Sorry, it's not a really weird throw. What Blizzard are going to change, though. Because I know it's coming. I was hoping by this date we'd have a fair idea, because when I originally sort of set the date we'd have with this, I was expecting, first of all, that Antorus would be coming out a week earlier than it actually is going to be coming out. And I would have hoped they would have updated things on the PTR as well. And although I know that they're going to change some things, because they always do when it releases, or just before it releases, I thought at least the set bonuses would be sort of done now. And they're clearly not. Since Blade of Wrath procs and auto attacks, really want to have Blade of Justice on cooldown before you run back into melee range, yeah. Yes, you do. So that's what I mean about just spend. You just use a Divine Storm either on single target, if necessary, when you're sort of moving back. And don't sit on stuff, basically. Because otherwise it's just going to waste. It's not like we're not like an energy-based class where you can just burn up all your energy and then let it build up while you move to another thing. Just what I've been saying, Long Train Ride mentioned that Rets suffer more from downtime than other, not all necessarily all of the melee damage dealers, but most, because we have virtually no downtime. Lots of other melee have downtime while they have to build resources. Like some resources just have to build up with like energy for rogues and ferals and monks and things like that. We don't have that. We have a, like most melee, I think now, if not all, have a dual resource system. So like rogues, feral and monks, you've basically got energy and combo points. It's called chi for monks, but it's still combo points. You know, warriors have got fury. Death Knights have got what do you call it? Like runic power and runes. We've got holy power and time. Time is one of our resources. So when something has come off cooldown, it's going to waste if we're not using it. Because we need to use it so that that time can start building up again, effectively. If you think about time as a resource. Is Tomb the hardest raid since Hellfire Citadel? I think it is, but I suppose it depends when you did it. Obviously, it was more difficult for that method in Exorcist because it was massively overtuned at the start. It's more difficult for us in the position I'm in because at the end of Nighthold, where we were also well behind the curve, really, Elisand and Gul'dan just got easier when you could outgear it, or when we got all those special abilities from 7.2.5. That's right, isn't it? 7.2. Was it? No, I can't remember patch numbers now. 7.2, sorry, 7.2. So when we got the new traits on our artifacts, we basically became more powerful. We basically got buffed. So we and Elisand, if you could push past certain phases, Elisand and Gul'dan didn't just get easier; they just actually became easy. Whereas in Tomb of Sargeras, Fallen Avatar didn't get easy just because you could push something a bit faster, and Mythic Kil'jaeden didn't get easy just because you still have to do all the mechanics on Mythic Kil'jaeden. You're not getting away with any, you know. So, yeah, the fights haven't... I mean, they've got easy just by definition because you can not have to spend as long in a particular phase. But you still have to deal with all... You're not getting away with any mechanics. You still have to do all the mechanics, just not as often. Or as many of them. So, I would say Tomb is harder from that point of view. But, I mean, that's not up against much competition because, you know, the only other tier raid there's been is Nighthold. So it was between those two anyway. I mean, Emerald Nightmare, of course, was not that difficult. Trial of Valor, of course, was, but that was because Helya, again, was absolutely insane at the start. And it went from being insane to not that bad in the end. So when you're waiting Zeal, everything's on cooldown, it's quite enough. Yeah, but, I mean, that's what I mean about Retribution Paladins. When you have a bit of downtime, sometimes you can imagine it's going on for ages. The maximum amount of downtime you'll have is a couple of seconds, and that's quite unusual. But that's just how rapid fire the rotation is, that when you do have nothing to use for a couple of seconds, it seems like an eternity. So the idea of having to move out for something for 5 or 6 seconds is ruinous. And it's why a lot of Rets really, you know, you can... A lot of Rets will basically be viewed as DPS hordes, well, so a lot of them are, just because mechanics are ruinous, like moving out to do something during wings especially. No. A lot of ones will not like doing that at all. So, first stupid question, let's have a look then. Does Retribution Paladin specifically feel slow to play? One town until now been key spamming abilities, but now started to try and press keys when the global goes off. It just feels slow. It doesn't feel slow, and to me, obviously, there may be some. I can't think there's any specs that are more rapid fire, because how can they be? Because you're hitting something all the time. I don't know whether it might feel slow because with some things you're hitting the same thing over and over again, whereas this one it's different abilities. But it's certainly not slow. I don't know how it can be slow when there's always something to do. Like you're always using an ability. But I do agree when you've got Crusade and especially Heroism, as I'll call it, it is too much. It just goes insane. Again, it's too much haste. There is such a thing. It's uncomfortably high, the haste then. Because you feel like you're just getting ahead of yourself. It feels like you're travelling forwards in time. First Armageddon on Kill Jade and usually breaks through legs, so I can't move. Yeah, I really know. I mean, that's one that I will not soak unless it's right in melee range. On Heroic, on Mythic I do. On Mythic I will move out with wings and soak, simply because the next one is not great for me to soak anyway. That being said, on the last night we did Mythic Progress, there were so many people in my corner just soaking that although I would move out and try and soak, people just kept saying, no, bugger off. So I thought, oh, okay. But yeah, I frequently will disrupt. I will just disrupt. Because the thing is as well, like on Mythic, in Phase 1, if we've got enough DPS to push it, after the first like wailing, the tankard, the wailing eruption, and you're going to push it before you get the Fell Claws and Armageddon, which we do, there's no benefit in doing more DPS. So it doesn't matter. It's only my personal DPS that's been hurt by me moving out during wings. Because the only key DPS parts of that first phase for us, where we are now, is killing the eruptions in a timely manner. Well, that doesn't coincide with the Armageddon. So all I do is hurt my own personal DPS by moving out during wings at that point. Now, if there's another point, let's say during Phase 3, then yes, I would like to not lose any downtime on wings, because that is a DPS race. A DPS race that we will be trying in earnest on Monday and hopefully finishing it. It's actually quite funny. Everyone keeps telling me, well, once you've got into Phase 3, it's only 10 more Phase 3s just to practice the obelisks, and then you kill it. Problem is, getting into Phase 3 10 times for us can take 3 weeks. Hopefully it won't. I need to learn the obelisks. Out of the 4 times we got properly into Phase 3, I died to the obelisk 3 times. You don't know what's worse, the overkill during Lust and Crusade, or the feeling after both have worn off. Yeah, it's best not to think about it too much when they've worn off. It is too much, though. I absolutely agree. It's too much. I don't... You know, I'm always secretly quite pleased when we don't get heroism at the start of a fight. Sometimes there's a reason not to use hero at the start of a particular fight. I'm always really pleased about that. And I'm not too disappointed if heroism ends up being used at a particular part of a fight where I can't use Crusade. Because again, the combination of the two of them, you don't really get max use out of your heroism. May have answered this already, but which Antorus trinket are you most excited for? The legendary one that I'm not going to get. Simple as that. It's the only good one for us. The only good one is Eye of Amonthul, which has a really low chance to drop. Yeah, getting it. I'm not getting it unless we're really lucky. Might be. I might be lucky. Think happy thoughts. You think the overall... Oh, I've just said that. Words keep stumbling through abilities. Well, that's the thing. You do keep stumbling through abilities. Like, I will... And I'll do that. And then, like, I'll use Judgement. And then I'll keep going. And I'll realise Judgement hasn't actually gone. Oh, Judgement. It is really annoying with... Because especially, I have over 30% haste just baseline. Then, if you've got full stacks of Crusade and you've got Heroism, Bloodlust, time or whatever... You are on over 100% haste. That's not nice, actually. That's actually not nice. It sounds like it should be. It's not. It's a little bit too much. Obviously, at those times, it's not helping me one iota to have such high haste. Is Eye of Amonthul going to be Biss? Yes, I think it's going to be Biss for everyone, isn't it? But it's especially good for because we don't find any of the other trinkets good in Antorus at the moment. So actually, our Biss trinkets are going to be Eye of Amonthul and a high item level Arcano Crystal. Like even 910, the 910 baseline one. That will be fine. Those will be the two Biss trinkets for us. Good old-fashioned stat sticks is what we want. Which is disappointing. Because it was like Nighthold trinkets weren't very good. Like we wanted Convergence of Fates and the Scorpion trinket. I've completely forgotten the name of it now. Claw of the Crystalline Scorpion or something. Because they were the only two decent ones. They were just decent. They weren't great for us. Then Tomb of Sargeras, most of the trinkets were actually pretty good. It was very difficult to get a trinket you wouldn't be excited. Anguish, obviously. I mean, I've coined Anguish very early on with a socket, and I still haven't put a gem in the socket because there's no situation to use that trinket on. But the rest of them can all be used. So Tomb of Sargeras was pretty good for trinkets. It was the first time where you go, oh, I don't have to go out farming them in Mythic Plus dungeons. Whereas now you come to Antorus. In fact, I remember someone linking in Guild a 930 Horn of Valor, I think it was. 930 Horn of Valor. And I remember thinking, bugger, I actually want that now. Haven't really wanted it recently. I would actually want that now. How long do I think I'll end up keeping Cinders through Antorus? It depends how lucky I get with other trinkets. I honestly don't know the answer to that one. It just depends. I'm going to hope to get an Arcano Crystal quite quickly, and then the Eye of Amonthul on the first thing. Although annoyingly, when Antorus comes out for the first time that week, because I've got a couple of events coming up at work, which are going to make me late to a raid. So, although I shouldn't miss Argus, I suppose, the Unmaker. What about 950 Cinders? Well, you just have to sim it and see how it goes. I shouldn't rename the stream. Didn't I rename the stream? I thought I did rename the stream. Hang on, let me refresh. It has been playing funny games. It says live Retribution Paladin discussion. Is that not giving people a bit of a clue that it's for Retribution Paladins? I think that's all right. Is the legendary trinket a personal drop like Matt's? Yeah, the way as I understand it, and of course I don't think Blizzard have said anything officially, so I can only say as I understand it. It's a low drop rate, like 5% ish, and personal, so you will just randomly get it, much like the mounts off like Mistresses and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's one of those things that if it is like that, and I can't be 100% certain, but I think that's how it's supposed to work, then there's no way of assigning it, which will actually be a good thing. If I'm honest, that would be a good thing, because I don't know how you would assign something like that, because it's BIS for everyone. Everyone will, of course, say that it is because it is BIS. And at that point, who do you then try and give it to? Do you try and give it to someone who can't possibly... I mean, like, I might say, well, I can't get any other trinkets in Antorus that are going to be any good. Even the other Path of the Titans trinket. But there might be other people in that situation as well. And even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best one to get it still. So it'd be much easier. I mean, if you're going to produce something like that, it's probably better that it is just personal. How the 5 item level upgrade item will drop, that's easy. It'll drop exactly like it did for Archimonde in Hellfire Citadel. Every week when you kill Archimonde, not Archimonde, Argus this time round, on whichever mode you kill him first. It doesn't... Actually, I think it does drop in LFR even. So you just have to kill Argus, the Unmaker, on any mode, and you get the item off the first time you kill him on whatever mode. And that's it. You just get it. So you just need to kill him on some mode, and you'll get the upgrade item. That's how that works. So you can only get one a week, and you'll get it from whichever... Oh, it's now been removed from LFR. Good, I was going to say. Because the actual trinkets didn't drop in LFR, so it made no sense to me that the token itself was dropping. So then, no, normal, heroic, and or mythic then. And the trinkets start out, unless that's changed, at 940. So that means you need 12 weeks to upgrade it. Let me just have a quick check here. Trying to see it. Pantheon's Blessing, that's what it's called, isn't it? So let's have a look. Yeah, it has. You're quite right. Been moved right far. Hi, Pinky Tiger. I'm well, thank you. So that's how it will work. The first time you kill Argus each week will reward you it. So if you're killing at least on normal in the first week, you'll get it straight away. Hang on, let's just have a look at something, because the other question is, you'll just have to store them up until, because obviously a lot of people won't actually get a Path of the Titans trinket for a while, because they can only drop off the last boss, and there's a whole raid of you. There may be some wait. So you'll be, the blessings themselves are not like unique or anything like that, which is good. So you'll just have to sort of store them up, and then some poor bugger probably won't get one until 12 weeks later, and then they'll just upgrade it all in one go. But yeah, in terms of the world first race, I don't know exactly how it's going to work here, because obviously with split runs, they shouldn't have a problem on getting the Path of the Titans effect, because they'll have enough trinkets in the raid. But can you listen to some Ret Talk? This is Ret Talk, Cybeth, yes. Why do I dislike the Paladin class mount so much? Because it's not as good as the the vanilla one, and they missed an opportunity to make us a fly. I know it flies. It doesn't look like a flying mount. What they should have done was to design us a Pegasus type mount. You know, that's an obvious flying Paladin mount to do, and they haven't done it. So it's a missed opportunity. All it is a less good version of the... Well, it's subjective, of course, whether it's less good or not. But at the very least, it's the same type of thing. It's just a horse. So what I specifically don't like is it just doesn't look as it just looks blocky. It looks like it's made out of Lego. The other one looks much more like a horse with like holy barding. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't look like a flying horse. It just flies around like the Headless Horseman's horse. But, you know, it should have been a Pegasus mount. It should have had the wings. The closest we've got... I mean, I got the Tyrael's Charger mount simply because at the time that was the closest... Well, it still is. The closest thing we had to a Paladin type mount. But the wings are like those... Of course they are. The Diablo type angel wings, which look a bit rubbish. So they could have done something a bit like that, but with proper, like, Pegasus wings, and it would have looked really good. But they didn't, so it doesn't. And it was ages before I even did the quest for it. I didn't even rush to do the quest for it, because I couldn't be bothered. So it took several weeks for me to even get around to doing it. Am I excited about trying out the vanilla? I'm not excited about trying out the vanilla servers, but I will try them out again. Well, I say try them out is the wrong word, because I've done vanilla. But I will roll my Paladin again on it. Do I think they'll improve the Paladin level in just a tiny bit now? And they shouldn't. They shouldn't change anything about it. There's no point in doing it at all if they're going to... From what they've said in interviews, it doesn't sound like they intend to change anything about the way the game works. Their main thing is wrestling over at which point of the patch, which patch, in other words, to bring it out with. Oh yeah, the Lightforged Warframe is very good. I'm using that at the moment. Yeah, which is why I've gone back. I've not got this Stormwind transmog anymore. I've got my Lightbringer transmog back on. New to Ret Paladin, super squishy. Take Divine Intervention for a start. You shouldn't really be that squishy unless you're standing in stuff you shouldn't. But we don't have a lot. It sounds silly. We don't have a lot of defensive stuff. So you need to try and avoid stuff. Also, you can take, like, if it's physical damage, which it almost never is, but if it is, eye for an eye. And if it's not, and you don't need to take eye for an eye, take Justicar's Vengeance, because you can at least use that to heal yourself up a little bit every now and then. Hi, Nitroxide. But mostly survive. It's like for anyone else. It's no different to anyone else. Don't expect to use your defensives to get you out of a difficult situation, because you don't really have them. You've got Bubble, but that's like... If you've got Divine Intervention once every 4 minutes, and if you don't, then it's once every 5 minutes. Yeah, the Twitch symbol and number, yeah, is how many of view, it's how many it's picked up as view. Except there's a bit of a disparity, because this says 57 and it tells me 61 up there. I'm not actually going to go and count. I don't know what it says on Twitch. What does it say on Twitch? It says 60 on Twitch. So I've got 3 completely different numbers. I think they're all correct. They're just lagging to a certain extent. I don't know which one's up to date. Doesn't matter. Not sure if I've talked about this before, but at what point did you decide to start using Soul instead of Liadrin's Fury Unleashed? At the point at which I started doing fights where I couldn't plant my feet and DPS for the full duration of Crusade. So both Fallen Avatar, I finally started calling it Fallen Avatar instead of Final Avatar, and Kil'jaeden on Mythic, I cannot guarantee to be DPSing constantly for the full duration of Crusade. So there is no point in taking 2 legendaries which only do anything during Crusade. The other thing is that with Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, I have extremely high haste. Now, if I'm just in game at the moment, let me just hold on. Let me just. Oh no. Hang on, sorry. I've got to swap some things around. So, Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, I've got 37% haste. It's quite high. It doesn't need to be that high. So, yeah. But yeah, mostly it's because they're the 2 legendaries that are only up for Crusade, which is fine if you can get maximum DPS out of Crusade. Also, there's sometimes situations where maybe you need to do quite a lot of damage, particular part when Crusade's no longer up or something like that. Whereas Soul of the High Lord is an RNG one, but it means that you've got a decent chance of getting some good out of it at various points of the fight. If you're on a fight where there are key DPS parts more frequently than every 2 minutes, so you can't really save wings for them, then it's good for that as well. Soul and Cloak. Yeah, I've started recently using Soul and Cloak, although I'm not convinced it's doing any more for me. But I think it is more flexible for me. What is my Lightbringer transmog? It's Lightbringer plus the Captain's Hat. Plus the Cloak is from... it's the crafted Shadow Cloak you got in Burning Crusade. So... there was a cloak you could craft. You needed to craft it for at least Mother Shiraz in Black Temple. And you used it with the Heart of something or other. Reagents that you used to get in like Black Temple and Mount Hygel. It's not a little hammer. It's a very nice hammer. I wasn't pleased by the fact... yeah, it's from... yeah, the off-pieces are also... no, actually, I tell you, there's one off-piece that's not from Black Temple. That's the belt. For some reason, I don't know what it is. There were 2 versions of Lightbringer. There was the PvP version and the PvE version. Knight's End, thank you. That's it. That's the cloak. The PvP version is subtly different because it has bits of red in it as opposed to blue. Now, for some reason, and I'm sure this was just a cock-up, not deliberate, the BO, I think it was a BOE belt, but the belt anyway, it was a trash belt. It may not have been BOE. There was a trash belt that dropped in Black Temple that matches the Lightbringer set, but it matches the PvP Lightbringer set. So to get the one that matches the actual Lightbringer set, the PvE one, you have to get that with, like, thingy, Badges of Justice, that's it. I can't remember what it's called then for a minute. From a vendor in Shattered City. So that's where I got the belt from as well. And the boots, yes, dropped from the first boss in Black Temple, whose name I've completely forgotten now. Nagentus. Couldn't remember his name there for a minute. I mean, when it comes to Legend, it is quite tricky because you can sim, obviously, but sometimes you have to think about, are there any conditions going on in the fight that means that the sim wouldn't be as accurate as it otherwise might be. So for me, it's a question of thinking, well, if I sim a fight, it's going to assume that I'm DPSing all the way through Crusade. What if I'm not? And if I'm not, then I know that the value of Chain of Thrain and Liadrin's Fury Unleashed is lessened. So think about how much the sim is saying that those legendaries are better than something else I've got. If it's not that much, then the chances are it's not actually better at all. It may be worse. So just use the other ones, which is what I've done. No, the blue Lightbringer belt, it was from a vendor. I don't think it was the Isle of Keldanas though. That wouldn't make any sense because that came out after Black Temple. That was for Sunwell Plateau. So it's definitely the one in Shattered City. I do remember the Crystal Forge set. Yeah. I remember in particular not looking forward to having to get it. At the time, in the first half of Burning Crusade, I was actually mostly playing a healer. I was mostly Holy Paladin. And I used to just play Ret at the weekends. And then when I changed to being main Retribution Paladin, because I did without the tier 5 for Holy. It wasn't that good, really. Wasn't that good. I was fine with tier 4. But then when I went Ret, actually the tier 5 bonuses, I can't remember what they were, but I seem to remember they were actually quite good for Ret. So I had to take it. But the Crystal Forge set, because it makes you look like a Power Ranger. It looks absolutely ridiculous. No problem, Masquerade. I mean, I have to think about the guide I do for Antorus. I'm in a bit of a quandary here. I don't think I'm going to update the Essentials guide, even though the Essentials guide was last updated for 7.2.5. See you later, Heraclius. Because I don't think enough has changed. So I think that Essentials guide will still be fine. So what I'll just need is a companion guide to go alongside it. The problem is when to do it. I can't do it now because I don't know what Blizzard are going to change for it. And even if they make some changes, say, the day before it goes live, which is a pain in the arse because the only time I can ever sit down and do something like that is the weekend. And it would take a full day to do it. It doesn't stop them changing something else the next week. It's really annoying. Like if you're doing a guide on a website, you just put it up, whatever. If they change something, you just put a note saying, oh, something's changed. I'll update this in the next couple of days, and in a couple of days you update it. Can't really do that with a video. So I am at a massive quandary, and I think for the next expansion, I'm going to have to rethink my strategy on exactly how I do the guides. It may well be... The thing is, right, if they're going to make any changes to the set bonuses, they've got to do that before it goes live. The problem is that people may already be planning on who needs 2 set and 4 set, like the most quickly, for working out split run groups. You know, so people are already planning that. Well, that's not very helpful if at the moment I'm saying I only really need 2-piece, and then when it goes live I might be going, oh no, I need 4. You know, it's really not helpful at all. They just don't care about balance that much. They've said as much. They've said as much. Before Legion even came out, right in the early days of Open Legion Alpha, they were saying that they are going to prioritize class fantasy over class balance, which, you know, I mean, what is class fantasy? It's subjective. And recently in that Q&A, Ian Hazacosta said, he said the words, oh, thank you very much, Masquerade Lol. Masquerade Lol. He said, does balance really matter? And I don't think he was talking about druids either. So he actually said, does balance really matter? In all seriousness, on a live Q&A, that the only people that would watch that are people who are actively interested in the game, not just pottering about, but actually, you know, serious players, you would say. And you actually say something like that, I couldn't understand it for the life of me. But yes, they're not that bothered about it. Or certainly they give the strong impression they're not that bothered about it. Balance druids absolutely matter, certainly. Yes. I was going to say we have 2 of them in our guild. But unfortunately, one of them hasn't been able to play balance for a very long time. So we sort of have one at the moment. Why do so many stoners play WoW? What? Do they? Clearly balanced druids mattered in Tomb. Chickens were, well... Were they? I don't remember. It's too long ago now. I can't remember what was good and not at the start of the tier. I just remember that I was dodgy. It was okay, actually. It was okay right at the start. It's when everyone started getting their tier gear and everything like that that it all went a bit wrong. Do I know if Deliver the Justice will be less useful than it is now with the new tier 21 set? Under certain circumstances, inevitably it will be, because if you're going to use Greater Judgment, then obviously on up to 4 targets, as long as they're clumped together, then you're going to be putting Judgment on all of them. Deliver the Justice isn't going to do a great deal there. So, from that point of view, yes. Deliver the Justice does have other benefits, though, like if an ad suddenly appears, then it means that, you know, it can sort of jump to it before your Judgment would naturally become available. But again, with higher haste, that might be less of an issue as well. But yes, Deliver the Justice traits would not necessarily be as good if you're going to be using Greater Judgment, of course. Yeah. What you want is, I mean, the standard things that you wanted before are probably still what you're going to want now. You're going to want Wrath of the High Lord. No, what am I talking about? Wrath of the Ashbringer. You're going to want your Crusade extending, of course. You're going to potentially want traits that buff Judgment. That's always going to be good. But don't think of that as necessarily... Because the thing is, like, you think about it this way. Why would... Why would something that buffs your Judgment suddenly be better just because of the 2-set bonus? Because it still works out the same amount now. It's just that because Judgment is going to do so much more damage, we're going to use it more often. Like the APL will change a little bit. We're probably going to be using Judgment more often than we do now, which means that any trait that buffs the Judgment damage is going to look a bit stronger. Traits that buff Blade of Justice damage are still looking good, because at the moment we're going to be using, we're still going to be using tier 20, and both of the tier 20 set pieces are like benefit you using Blade of Justice a lot, plus Blade of Wrath, because you can still take Blade of Wrath even when you're taking Greater Judgment, of course, and you will do. So yeah, I would say those are the 3 traits ideally you would be looking at: Judgment damage, Blade of Justice damage, and extending the duration on like Crusade. There was a lot of sustained AoE fights in early 2 Mythic. No. I suppose it depends what you did them on, because there were none at all on Mythic. Which fights do you mean, Malinoric? Because Goroth no AoE. Demonic Inquisition cleave at the start but then moved away. Harjatan, some AoE, but it wasn't terribly important to do it. as long as the ads were controlled. Like for if you just had to do single target, and that's what you did. Mistresses, not at all, because you needed to make sure the ads could die just before the tornadoes came in. It did depend on how your raid team did things, certainly. Like if you could be sure of blowing ads up that only just appeared just before the tornadoes, then on Mistresses, as some did, you could get away with AoEing them. In my particular guild, we don't trust people's level of control. Like, what a sensible person will do is think to themselves, are you going to be in trouble when the tornadoes come in? And they'll either stop DPS or ramp it up accordingly. If you don't have a raid that's got that level of control, and we didn't trust that ours did. So we just basically said, right, no cleaving, other than the stuff you can't help. We even stopped our warrior using moonglaze. We banned them from using moonglaze. It was that bad. So there was none at all on Mistresses for us. There was none at all, obviously, on Sisters, because you even had to sort of control the owl a little bit. Desolate Host, it depends which side you were on. If you were inside, but then as a Ret Paladin, you were better off outside because you could bubble at least one spear. And it's always good to have people who can immune the spears on the outside, even though it didn't immune them as well as it did for a rogue. Maiden, obviously, there's no ads. Fallen Avatar, you're not supposed to cleave on Maiden, so again, there's no ads there, effectively. And Kill Jaden, depends how you do it, but again, no ads. So in Mythic, single target, really. Do I think the label wheelchair is fair for Ret Paladins? No, it's just... It was always a meme. It was always a bit silly, really. I mean, as I said at the time, we're not as fast as having a wheelchair. We'd move much quicker then. But no, in all seriousness, it's nice, silly. The movement thing, like Divine Steed is a perfectly good movement thing as long as you don't need to use it more than every 45 seconds. Or if you can trust yourself not to die, or trust other people not to kill you, because there's plenty of fights in Mythic 2 and Sargeras where it's straight up other people can kill you. So if you can trust that, then you can of course take Cavalier. So the movement is not as, obviously it's not as good as some, because we don't have a blink or a leap ability or anything like that, which is really good on some things. But at the same time, it's better than Death Knights. I mean, Death Knights have got the really bad... the bad movement, really. I suppose Unholy have got their passive movement speed. I don't know. It's a tricky one. But on any fight, if you think about it, I mean, obviously Fallen Avatar. But for Fallen Avatar, you actually just need stunning. It's, bit better movement wouldn't have helped. You need great movement, or you're always going to be annoyed on Fallen Avatar. The problem with Long Arm of the Law is, of course, that was tied to Judgement. And Judgement is used differently as to how it was then, because it was a builder then, it's not now. So when you need to use Judgement now, you need to use it for rotational purposes. You don't want to delay it for a couple of seconds just because you know you're going to need a movement boost in a couple of seconds, if you see what I mean. Whereas when we had Long Arm of the Law, Judgement was on a shorter cooldown, and you could leave it for a couple of seconds because you had other builders you could potentially use anyway, and you would just try and favour those and wait a couple of seconds to use that. I mean, it was particularly good, I remember, in Mists of Pandaria. I remember the boss I most enjoyed it was... what was the name of that big bug? It began with G. Garrelon. And I used to sort of use that to run quickly between the legs when you were switching legs. Blessing of Might. Blessing of Might in Legion was a dreadful ability, Aris, and you know full well it was. Yeah, absolutely awful ability. I do not know how that got past the committee stage. I don't know how it even made it into the committee stage, quite frankly. So, Diagnix. So, if this mentioned before, do I have any tips for Mythic Fallen Avatar? I basically sat myself on that. It depends what specifically you mean with it and what your job is going to be. So if I were in melee and had the dagger in the back, how do I deal with it? We moved to one side. If it was at the back, you would try to move more towards the middle of the edge, but you certainly get it to an edge, and then warn people. Like I would generally try and warn people that there's a dagger coming from the back on the right hand side or left hand side, that sort of thing. But the daggers are they're the most horrible part of that fight, really. In the way it is now, I suppose the soaking was pretty bad when there were 5 things to soak before Blizzard nerfed it. But yeah, that's what I would say for the daggers. Just sort of get yourself, if it's from the back, get yourself to the middle of whatever edge is going to mean it runs across the fewest number of people, and then just warn people so the 1 or 2 people who may be in the way are aware of it. So it's about warning people, and then it's up to them to get out of the way if it's possible. Why would Hal... Oh my god, I'm just going to ignore RS at the moment. But in general on Fallen Avatar, I don't know. Just don't die. Don't die and give up on any hope of doing anything useful on the fight. And avoid tornadoes in Phase 2, so that you'll have your bubble available in case you get the Dark Mark in a situation where it's either sacrifice or deal with it yourself. And take Justicar's Vengeance, because if you are in a situation where your health's quite low, just use that to heal yourself up. Eye for an eye is no value to you, so you might as well. Am I going to be releasing my thoughts on Ret Paladin and Antorus? It's inevitably at some point. When I have some, I don't have any at the moment because I haven't done any Antorus. We don't do raid testing with my guild. So in terms of what I usually do, in fact, no, what I always do is I will always, after a couple of weeks, do some thoughts about dealing with it on heroic mode. Then I sort of always plan to do it for Mythic and then never do, because there's always other things take higher priority, because Mythic guides effectively exist by other people do Mythic guides anyway, so I always sort of feel it's low priority. And in the time I have to do things. But the heroic ones, certainly, I would do heroic and normal ones. And from a Ret's point of view, obviously with the weekly Ret vlogs things, that would be a suitable forum for discussing specific fights as well, in terms of how I think they can be dealt with. But as I say, at the moment, as things stand at the moment, the Ret Paladins who have done PTR testing in Antorus are actually quite happy. We're just waiting to see what Blizzard are going to change, because we don't know. No one's telling us. We know something's changing. We're quite happy to tell us that something's changing, but not what or when. So, I don't know. Really annoying. Well, I mean, the thing is, they're not going to tell us that they're going to make a change before they just change it, don't they? And then we find out that way. But I just do not understand why they haven't made any changes to the tier sets for so long. You know, when it's obvious they cannot stay as they are, then they haven't just changed them. I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's baffling to me. Yes, I know, Retribution. Wake of Ashes was in place of Holy Wrath on the last tier and the BlizzCon demos. But that's not going to be there. I am certain of that. The reason it was there for the BlizzCon thing was because for the BlizzCon thing, we couldn't have our artifacts. It's taking place in Battle for Azeroth, no artifacts. But Wake of Ashes is an integral part of our rotation, so they gave it as an option for that. But you can't give it as an option because it's a baseline ability. It's a baseline ability now, as all the artifact abilities are for those who get them. Not everyone, like Frost DKs, get a passive, you know. But all of the ones who get an ability, which is most of the specs, it's a baseline ability because we always have our artifact. In the next expansion, of course, we're going to lose out on that. And they've already said they're not going to do a major redesign of any specs. So that means we have to have basically the same abilities. So that means we have to have Wake of Ashes as baseline. All that means is they haven't thought of another talent yet to put in there. Because the way it always works out in the design process, the classes are the last things to be designed in an expansion. They don't even really start doing much until they're about... I mean, they'll be doing it round about now, the classes. And then when they've got a few things in place, that's probably when they're going to open up alpha to everyone. I don't know when that's going to be. So, but at the moment, yeah, the problem with Crusade, though, is mostly it's the Wrath of the Ashbringer traits. Because when we get rid of our Ashbringer, we're also going to get rid of those traits. That will make it easier to balance. Because in Legion, it's been basically impossible to balance. All of these tuning that they've tried to do with it have been in the interest of smoothing out our damage across the rotation. It's not been done to try and stop us using Crusade all the time. They know that. It was obvious when Legion launched, before Legion launched, that you cannot balance Crusade with any other talent. It will always either be so good that you always take it, or worse than not having a talent at all, because they actually did that at one point in beta. They nerfed Crusade to the point where it was worse than just having no talent at all in that row. Because it was worse than the baseline version of Engine Wrath. They said some classes, not all will keep their artifact spell. Have they said that, Fraser? That would be strange to me, because I don't know how you don't do rebalancing of classes or retuning of classes whilst at the same time getting rid of a powerful core ability, baseline ability. That sounds weird. Holy Wrath, I think, is just disappearing. The issue with Holy Wrath, the sort of history of Holy Wrath in its current form, obviously the word Holy Wrath has been a paladin spell since day one. But in its current form. So they introduced it in Legion Alpha, and it was the concept was awful for PvE. You know, you can think about it in PvP as being, you know, having potential, but for PvE it was shocking. There was a fair amount of robust defense of it, however. So when we were attacking it, first of all, the phrase came out, great, pick another talent, as if, oh, you don't like it? That's no problem, pick another talent. Completely ignoring the fact that basically it means we only have 2 talent choices on that row. And remember, the positions changed all over the place. Again, which just missed the point. You know, it was a crap talent. Even when it potentially might have been a strong talent, there was a particular period where it looks like it might be quite strong. That's worse than it being a dead talent. Because the way you'd have to game it to get any use out of it would mean you'd have to keep taunting the boss. You'd have to use your bubble automatically to survive it, which basically means you then don't have your bubble for defensive purposes because you're using it to do damage in an aggressive way with Holy Wrath. So the whole thing was a total nightmare. But because 2 very senior developers put up this really strong defense of it, I say strong defense, not strong defense as in a good defense, just they basically put their reputation on the line defending it. We're all saying no one will take it. They were all saying, yeah, they will. And they didn't. So they couldn't get rid of it during Legion because then they'd just look stupid. So they've waited till the next expansion. They aren't going to get rid of it. It's just going. And they're not going to try and rescue it because it's just unrescuable. Well, I don't know about winning, but Wake of Ashes is definitely a core paladin ability. Especially with Crusade. You could live without it a little bit more easily if Crusade were not a thing. But even then, what do I think about them bringing buffs back in Battle for Azeroth? Trying to make classes special again. My issue is that some of those abilities were inevitably better than others. All you are going to do with this, it's going to hit dungeons harder, because a dungeon can only have, like in a raid, you can actually have one of each class, in theory, have all the buffs. But then you actually ask yourself, some of these buffs, like, just last, they're just going to last the whole raid. as in the whole boss, because like sometimes they're auras, sometimes they're effects that you put on someone, it lasts an hour. But some of them don't. Some of them are abilities you just use, like on a particular person or something like that. And then you think to yourself, without knowing all the details, so does that mean if you had 2 of that class that you're going to get extra benefit? Because if that's true, then that means you've got a reason for bringing more of that class. So you're going to create a situation where, again, it makes some classes redundant just on the basis that their class ability, you don't get any benefit for having more than one of that class in. So that's an absolute nightmare. That's the first point. The second point, in dungeons where you can only have 5, you're just going to pick the 5 that... Well, I'm not going to say it's all your decision making is going to be entirely based on these, but in theory, it could encourage you to take certain classes over others because of the ones that are strongest for the Mythic Plus dungeons. Because some will just be stronger than others. The Paladin one, at first, I was looking at it and thinking this is absolutely dreadful because it's just buffs armor. And I thought, well, that's only any good for the tank, and even then, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I am assured that it also gives magic damage reduction as well. In which case, fine. But just in general, looking across all the classes, some of those abilities will inevitably be better than others. And some of them you will benefit from having multiple of, and some of them you won't. So it's divisive, and they shouldn't do it, in my opinion. Also in BlizzCon demos. The BlizzCon demos are not there. Even when they open up alpha, the talents and abilities that there will not be the same as they will when it goes live. There's so many because they can't even begin to tune classes until there's loads of people trying them out. It's the last thing they do, the very last thing they do. In fact, literally in Legion, it was the last thing they did, because they even did that after they were raid testing. It was like, how can you even raid test the bosses for balance before you've even done the class balancing? But they didn't. They thought they could. Do I think or hope they will make Blessed Battle Gear of the Undead Slaying available to those of us that were present or had it back in the pre-event of Wrath of the Lich King? I don't even remember what that is. Judgement armor recolor. I've got... I don't remember it at all. Okay, I don't remember it in any way, shape or form. Blue Judgement. Ugh. I'm quite happy with my... I haven't used my Judgement as a transmog for a long time, actually. Oh, the gloves didn't match the rest of the set. I mean, recolors, they're all about the recolors. The thing is, if they were to do anything new like that, they would probably do with what they've done with Tier 20, because like with Tier 20, it's an updated version of the Lightbringer. Again, I don't think it looks as good. You know, the shoulders are mad. I do remember the purple Judgement that dropped in dungeons. That's okay. I've sometimes used that on my Death Knight. But yeah, so if I ever did anything Judgement wise, they would just do an updated higher res version of it, I think. Oh, I don't remember that set at all. I don't remember it. That it's like jade green turquoise, isn't it? But the helms look terrible. I mean, that's the thing. There's quite a lot of Paladin sets that look quite good. The helms universally look terrible, I think. So I really... I never use Paladin helms because they look shocking. Absolutely shocking. But that's fine. I've got my captain's hat, so I don't need that. And when I went Horde and couldn't use my captain's hat anymore, I used the fell goggles. So that's suitable for a Blood Elf. Mythic Blackrock Foundry helm. Don't even remember that. Let me have a look. I'm still in game. Oh, it's not even going to show me, is it? I won't even be able to see it from here. Never mind then. But I don't remember what any sets really look like. because I don't I transmog them into something from Vanilla or Burning Crusade. All of my transmogs are from Vanilla or Burning Crusade. Helmets are hard. They just, no, it's just that helmets like shoulders, they just make too showy. They just try to be too fancy. And I don't like that. Now the shoulders you're stuck, well, you're not completely stuck with, but they do look ridiculous if you don't have the shoulders showing. Whereas the helms, you can have the helms not showing, it's all fine. So that's what I tend to opt for. I mean, some races certainly do not lend themselves to helms. Tauren being an obvious one. But yeah, I mean, the Mythic Tier 20 helm. The Mythic Tier 20 will be the one that's the redesign, effectively, of Lightbringer. So it'll be the Halo type effect, won't it? Who drops the helm? Let me remember. Second boss, isn't it? Yeah, so it's the Halo effect, which dropped off Archimond in Burning Crusade in Hyjal, which I didn't like. So I didn't use it. I actually used the helm that dropped off the Council boss in Black Temple. It was really a off-tier warrior one, but it looked quite good. Tier 2, yeah, I mean, the update of it I don't care for. I just used the original Lightbringer. But the mythic shoulders are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, shoulders are always ridiculous. But again, it comes back to the fact that I don't really like the art style in WoW. Some people do. I'm not. I'm much more of a fan of more real. I'm not saying, I mean, no fantasy game is actually realistic in reality. But the ones that are more plausible, should we say, that sort of look like they could be, if you didn't know any better. There are sets coming from Warfronts that look like revamps of the old PvP sets, including my favourite hammer. Someone was showing me, I think they linked in Twitter, some redesigns of these, including what is supposed to be redesigned by a hammer. I hope, I didn't like it. So I hope that it is just for Battle for Azeroth and they're not going to redo my hammer, because that would be spectacularly annoying. Because, yeah, can I find it actually? Someone linked it. I can't remember when they linked it though. So I may have to go down a bit. Oh, hang on, here it is, here it is. Alright, let's see if I can make a copy of it. There we go. So let's just get it to a sensible size. Move it down a bit. So yeah, I'm not at all keen. The one on the left, the Horde one, looks quite good. That's all right. Swords, yeah, I've generally been more of a fan of swords, but I do like the vanilla, like Grand Marshal hammer. It's like an Uther the Lightbringer hammer, basically. Have I talked about Antorus for Rets? Yes, as much as I can. I don't really know too much about the fights, other than the Rets who have tried them are happy with the fights at the moment. In terms of gear, trinkets bad, tier good, but only the first two. The first two are needed. But of course, they are going to change things. I don't know what they're going to change, but they are going to change things. Is all I really know. But I have, yeah, I have quite a nice selection of swords that are suitable as well. But yeah, I'm not keen on these hammers. So if they're just something you get from Warfronts, then I'm fine with that. I've got no issue with that at all. If they're intended as redesigns of what I've already got, then I will not be happy. But that, I say, I don't think that makes sense. I don't see why they would do that. Because the main reason people want the transmogs of like the old PvP stuff is for nostalgia purposes anyway. Even though I'm allowed to wear them and never got to the rank where I could have worn them properly at level 60. They seem to pull a bit of a fast one there. Not that I'm complaining. The main thing I complain about is the fact that I can't get it on my other characters. Because the argument goes, oh, well, just because you could have got it on a paladin doesn't mean to say you could have got it on a hunter. To which my response would be, nonsense. All I had to do was camp Alterac Valley for 2 weeks solid during summer holidays, when I could basically just live for 20. I just played 20 hours a day for 2 weeks, and got Knight Captain rank. I could have done that on any character. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to redesign the old stuff, unless it's just to make them higher res versions. They did make a higher res version of the Bulwark of Azimuth, didn't they, during WoD? Because they were going to use it anyway for the models. So they improved that. So that was, I mean, that was fine, because it wasn't a redesign as such. It was the same design, just higher res version of it. So that was quite good. People use share account. I didn't do it that. I wasn't that extreme at the time. But I just went into Alterac Valley lots. I mean, I did a few other Battlegrounds courses as well, but. Well, the BC one isn't anymore. It was upgraded in WoD. But yeah, we'll get rid of these hammers now. There's only the one right on the extreme left, and that's a Horde one that looks decent. I suppose the one on the right is supposed to be a one. I mean, I suppose the one on the left is supposed to be a one-hander. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. In which case, the head looks quite good. If they just made it on a longer shaft and it was a two-hander, then that would look quite good. Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, that's the thing. They are older models now. But it wasn't, well, I mean, point was that it wasn't difficult to get. It was, obviously, you'd have to do much more to have got Marshal, for which you needed Marshal to get the armor and Grand Marshal to get the weapons. Like the epic versions. There were blue versions of the armor as well that you could get at Knight Captain. So I'm guessing the reason why I'm allowed the transmogs is that. The only reason I got to Knight Captain is not because I was bored that summer or because I wanted to do some PvP. It was simply because I wanted the title Knight Captain. That was it. I didn't want to go any higher because the one higher above that was Knight Commander. So I deliberately stopped. I could have spent all of summer doing it. And I could have got, because I know some people who just did no more than I did. And they got to Marshal. Grand Marshal obviously was a bit trickier, but Marshal you could easily do if you were willing to just put that much time in, which I had summer off. I had nothing else to do, and but I specifically wanted the Knight Captain title, and if you got yourself the Knight Commander title, you wouldn't have been able to use the Knight Captain title. So, wonder if Turalian plays a bigger participant role in Antorus. Yes, I think it's, well, like in terms of the dialogue that's obviously been data mined from it all that we've seen, like not spectacular. He's involved, but he's not going to do anything special in Antorus. Illidan's the special one in Antorus. So, because we've seen the fights have all been sort of tested and everything. You can sort of see what happens in them all. So he's there in them, I think, or in some of them, because there's some dialogue. But yeah, I don't think he plays a particularly large role. I think he's just back. I think that's when it comes to Turalian. You've got the audio drama that was out. He was very much involved in the initial quests on Argus. That's about it. Presumably he'll come back to Azeroth with us, because the Burning Legion will be over. So we can come back to Azeroth along with Illyria. Illyria, obviously, I mean, we'll sort of know that's going to happen now, because Illyria is going to train up the Void Elves, We don't know where Turalyon will end up. I don't know. I assume he's going to go to Stormwind, where he has 2 statues. He's the only person to have 2 statues of himself in Stormwind. So I would imagine, but I don't, whether he'll play any part in the next expansion as such, I don't know. I assume that Illyria will, because all of these allied races are supposed to get their own storyline that sort of explains how they came to be. So presumably Illyria will be very much involved in the Void Elf storyline. Turalyon may not, because he's not got any links with the new allied races. The only thing that makes me think he might feature in the next expansion is he was the general when Lothar was killed in the Horde versus Alliance war, like the second war, wasn't it? In retaking, he's the general who retook Stormwind and then destroyed the Dark Portal. Well, Khadgar destroyed it, but he was the general. He was the guy in charge. So he may well rise to another similar rank and be instrumental in Battle for Azeroth as well. It would make lore sense for that to happen. But whether they actually do that or not, I don't know. Maybe he will be Anduin's tactical advisor. But you notice he wasn't in the cinematic. So he wasn't exactly by Anduin's side in the BFA cinematic, was he? Which was disappointing for me personally. When you say Naru armor, are you talking about the set that he was in for that recording at the start of Legion, which was very similar to like the tier 4? Or do you mean the one he's currently in? He's putting out the tree fire. I don't know that he'd be much good at putting out a tree fire. I'm not sure he's quite got the skills for that. I did see, it's quite a good meme about that today. How am I going to find this quickly? Oh yeah, I like this. This is it. You think he will die? No, we're not killing Turalyon. We've brought him back after how many years? Hold on. When did Warcraft 2 come out? A long old time anyway. A long old time. About 20 years, a bit more maybe. They've only just brought him back and they're not going to kill him off straight away. What am I going to call this? Call it pizza tree. Sources. Quite like this one. Because we don't yet have a reason for burning Teldrassil. 2004. No, it was way before 2004. 2004 is when World of Warcraft came out. Warcraft 2. I mean, Warcraft 2 was out. Warcraft 3 was out for ages. It had like at least 2 expansions. No, it would have been a good. I could look it up. It would be the 1990s when Warcraft 2 came out. So you're talking a good 20 years. So yeah, they're not going to kill him off now. They've just brought him back. If he's not going to die as part of the Argus storyline, which he's not, then there's no need to kill him in any other storyline. He might as well just come back, take over the role that Bolvar had, advising, looking after Anduin. I know Gen Greymane's been doing that a bit recently, but he's a bit grumpy. He's a bit too grumpy to do the job properly. I don't think Anduin likes grumpy people somehow. So, yeah, I can see Turalyon being in the throne room in Stormwind. as like as a general, and maybe get involved in a particular storyline or something. Who knows? Get rid of that. Oh, sorry, hold on. Get rid. I'm not sure what that command's supposed to be for. Hang on, is something... I don't know if I talked about it already, but what are your thoughts on the Wake of Ash becoming a talent? I don't think they will become a talent. As simple as that. I think... how long am I alive? We're sort of round about the time where things tend to tail off a little bit. I'll carry on until people stop completely, but we usually get a good hour and a half out of it, and then usually half an hour of nonsense, or a quarter of an hour of nonsense. So yeah, in terms of the Wake of Ashes being a talent, I think they just rammed something together for the BlizzCon event. I don't think they intend it to be a talent. I'd be very surprised, because it's a core part of our rotation, and as such, it should stay that way. Otherwise, they're going to have... I think they should redesign the class. And they said they don't want to redesign specs. So that's fine. We'll just have it baseline. So they'll have to come up with something else to replace Holy Wrath. Which they will be doing, I'm sure. Because, like, what I noticed is 2 years ago, when they did the first BlizzCon talking about Legion... I've gone out of focus. There we go. When we did the first one talking about Legion, they specifically said at the time that the open alpha was ready to go, and it would be launching within like a couple of weeks. In the end, it was like more like a month, but still, it was pretty quickly after BlizzCon. This time round, as far as I know, they haven't said that, which means that there's... I don't know whether you read into that it's probably not going to be before the end of the year, that it's probably going to be in the new year before that goes out. And then when it does go out, I will just have to hope that I don't think... I wouldn't obviously be in the first wave. I will just have to hope that, like last time, I'm in the second wave. But that's just down to pot luck then. Would be a shame, since Crusade seems like it's staying the talent to have. No, like, I don't know. I think they can balance it. I would just get rid of it. I have to be honest, though. I would just get rid of Crusade. But they can bring it back into line so that you can use it on some fights and use something else on other fights. If they... Like, the thing I said they should do all the way through Legion is get rid of the Wrath of the Ashbringer traits. Most of the problems that we have had with certain abilities and talents have been because traits have made something either too strong or too weak. Like, for example, the traits that buff Templar's Verdict are what killed Execution Sentence. It's not that Execution Sentence is fundamentally bad, it's that it doesn't get buffed by the traits that buff Templar's Verdict when it should have done. And it's the same sort of thing with Crusade. Crusade became too powerful because of the traits that buff the duration of it. So when artifacts go and they get rid of that, then it may be possible to tune it. Yes, it will take some getting used to. I mean, they may make that baseline as well. The fact that Divine Storm just goes forwards, that could just be made baseline. But if they don't, yes, it will take some getting used to. Because at the moment, you sort of find yourself, when you want into AoE, you find yourself moving round to a side of the clump where there's maybe a mob just the other side of it, and you move around there to get it through as many as possible. Which is completely different to how you would normally use Divine Storm, where you just get in the middle of everything to hit as much as possible. Now you actually get on the edge of everything and aim it through as much as possible. So positioning would be very different if it reverted. But yeah, in terms of the class stuff, I think they're only now even thinking about classes for BFA, because they never do for expansions. They don't pin. They get the expansion basically sorted before they work on classes, because they know the classes is going to change the most anyway. Of all the content they do, and any content can be chopped and changed. But of all the content they do, classes are the ones, and specs are the ones that get changed around the most. And they need lots of people to be playing it and providing feedback. You're interested to see how they work it all out and play a Warlock, and our artifact ability increases damage and doubles the effect of the artifact traits. Well, the artifact traits will disappear. So you'd have to think to yourself, when the artifact traits are gone, what are you going to be? Obviously, they can retune individual abilities. But if there's a particular ability or talent that is only good because of traits, or maybe it's only bad because of traits, then that can sort of change things around for the next expansion. What? Turalian will die, and Khadgar is the master at the table of the old gods whispering. I don't know. Khadgar, I think, might take a bit of a step back. I think, you know, he's had his moment in the sun for like 2 expansions, Khadgar. I think they'll just let him fade back a bit. They'll probably just stay in Dalaran, with Dalaran not being a key part of the next expansion, I would assume. So I think he'll just fade into the background a bit. Maybe come back in a future expansion or something. I think it's bad that if they... I don't think it would be good for them to have Khadgar be a prominent character still. Because for some people, it seems like he is the key guide character. And I think it needs to be someone else. Wonder what kind of replacement weapons we'll get before we're let loose on the next expansion. Well, we'll get one as part of a quest reward, I should think. It'd be like the quest that means we lose our artifact abilities. I'm quite sure means that we will get a weapon. Otherwise, it would not be much fun punching your way through quests until you found one that did award a weapon. I don't think they will alter the judgment window system that's in place now. No. If they have gone on record as saying they don't want to, and I didn't think they would anyway, because they tend not to do this in consecutive expansions. If they've actually said they really don't want to be redesigned in specs, then that's what they mean. And I don't think they're going to make a special case for Retribution Paladins. People like the judgment system now, you get used to it, but people preferred the old mastery and judgment system. But you get used to it, it's fine, you sort of put up with it. It's not good, obviously, for when you're having to switch targets a lot. Like targets dying quickly and then onto another one, like, you know, Mythic plus Dungeon Trash, for example. It's not great. But you just have to get used to it. Yeah, we don't have unarmed skill anymore, do we? But yeah, I mean, so yeah, they can't have us actually just punching our way through things. Most of my abilities don't even work if I'm unarmed anyway. And I'm going to refresh this because there's something up with my Twitch thing there. So yeah, I would just think that whatever it is that loses our weapons is part of a quest that just gives us a weapon at the end of it. So it's a smooth thing between, oh, my artifact's gone. Oh, here's a sword. Oh, great, thanks. It'll just work like that. Oh, that's better. But whether, you know, because I don't know the details of how we're going to lose it. I sort of have a bit of an inkling without actually knowing it in great detail. But what I'll say at this point is we'll keep going on just general chatting, probably for another like 10-15 minutes, something like that. But for the YouTube purposes, I will sort of call into it here. I'll probably chop it at this point because I think we've asked most of the questions that are likely to come up. There's a few just going to be repeats. So I will thank the people who've been watching this on YouTube. If you want to watch the other end of it, you can come find it on Twitch. And the usual thing, everyone knows what I'm going to say at this point, that I hope you enjoyed listening to this. And if you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Always subscribe. And I'll see you later.